Music production. What is it? Who's doing it? And what on earth do all those buttons do?
It has never been easier or cheaper to be a musician than in the 21st century, but it has never been harder to be heard. Discuss.
Today we're discussing music production and the implications for the modern independent musician. I'm Jessica Lee Morgan, this is Christian Thomas, and this is the Space Bar at the GiG TV show. First off, I think we need to define what music production is. Well, back in the day, there were images of lots of men in white coats and big boards with lots of knobs and faders on. Basically, I think, Chris, you can correct me if I'm wrong, I think it's turning basically a song into a track, a production, a record that gets airplay and gets put on records and sold.
I think that's a fair description of what it was.
What it was, okay,
Yes.
but now it's a bit more blurred. You had distinct roles, didn't you? You had engineers. Yep. They stopped wearing the white coats after a while. And you had the producers. The producers didn't often touch the buttons. That was left to the engineers who handled the tape and all that kind of stuff. It was always in...
A mix balancer. A balance engineer.
Oh, right, balance engineer.
They would have done the mixing.
And then, obviously there was lots more involved, but basically you also had pre-production. So the producer might work with somebody, before they came into the studio. They'd bring their songs and then they'd play them. I mean, the early days, they'd just stand around one microphone, wouldn't they?
Yeah, an Omni mic, yeah.
And I've got a personal interest in this because my father is a record producer. His name is Tony Visconti. You may have seen his name on albums by people like David Bowie and T-Rex and Thin Lizzy and all those kinds of cool dudes.
Adamant.
He's still working and he's seen a lot of changes as well.
Yes.
There's other great names in the music business. His idol was George Martin. It's like the primary reason why he came over from America to the UK. Phil Spector was another guy who had a very, very distinctive sonic fingerprint. It's about the production. It's not necessarily about the person. Today, Mark Ronson, for instance, is all the rage. A guy who's got a great, you can tell often that they've got a sound of their own.
Yes.
I think. But now, what is it? It's a bit different now, isn't it, Chris?
Because everything is so freely available these days, it's so much easier for a musician to actually just do everything themselves. So the kind of music production would start at what we would have said was pre-production. That music production starts with writing the song, I think, these days.
Yep.
It's my definition of it. I think it's how I understand the way things are. If you disagree, let us know.
Bunch of people around a laptop or in a studio.
Yeah.
They've got the beat going, they've got the chord. Oh, I've been chucking around these chords. Oh, I've got a hook that goes la la la.
Yeah, they haven't necessarily come along. They might have come along. Some people might have come along with their book full of song titles and concepts and everything.
Yeah.
And hooks that, as you say, they might already have those.
Yeah.
But it isn't necessarily that they turn up with a bunch of chords and a melody and a line that they're going to sing.
No, many of the modern songwriters, Ed Sheeran, he's, I'm sure he writes his songs, but he co-writes, he'll turn up with his just thoughts, lines, poetry. I don't know how perfectly formed they are at that point. To obviously start with a very rough idea. And then the production element can actually define the way the song goes, can't it?
Well, a lot of the songs are so simple these days in terms of the way that they're produced and everything else, which is what we're talking about. But it is actually the production and the arrangement that is the key point in the song. That's the hook, not necessarily what's going on lyrically or melodically.
Yep. Yeah, absolutely.
Some songs you hear these days, it's actually the hi-hats that are the melodic line because there's nothing else going on there, but it's because you can hear it. They start chucking the triplet stuff into the hi-hats. That's where the interest is. That's where the actual hook is.
Yep.
It's in a hi-hat, not in a melody line.
And the sound has changed, hasn't it? Modern sound is very much, the stuff in the charts, really, which is not the entirety of the music industry, but it's certainly the stuff that has any chance of making money. It's very highly, highly polished. Vocals are very highly polished.
Yeah.
Lots of vocal chain effects. And I'm not a massive fan of very, like Kylie's new stuff. It's very, gosh, she can sing. She doesn't need all that. But it's very refined. So, but that's kind of a different matter, and that's definitely artistic and personal taste, isn't it?
I heard someone was saying about this a while ago that kids are actually singing now as if they've got auto-tune on their voices. They're actually emulating that, what people call now the T-Pain effect, which we would say is the Cher effect because we're so old.
Yeah, that's quite disturbing.
But people are actually singing like that, and they're also singing in that slightly robotic style already because that's what they hear.
Heard. Yeah. Whereas in reality, a lead vocal on a top 20 hit is probably, it's got a whole sandwich of stuff, vocal chains, it's double tracked, it's got this one and that one, and
More compressors than you can shake a stick at.
Yeah. So, I mean, you could argue that there's always been a huge production has been the thing, I'm thinking Phil Spector, because he had such a distinctive technique, the wall of sound. You could say that's a Phil Spector.
Yes.
Yeah, but then
the song already existed though.
Yes.
By the time it had come to him.
Yeah, I mean there was a hit factory process back then, but
the song already existed before it got to the producer.
It would have done. Yes. Yeah. Again, there were a whole bunch of people, people writing in the Brill building. Get a song, publisher. It was a real production line.
Yeah, I fell into that trap as well, trying to describe production with production.
Production. Yeah. Well, it is. That's why it's called production. My dad likens it to being a film director. You've got to have the vision, then you've got to have the material and the script, and then you've got to direct the actors. You've got to direct the musicians, get the best out of them.
Which is the absolute benefit of working with a producer.
Yeah,
is that you've got someone else's ears on what's going on, and someone who can just say, "Hang on a minute, what instead of playing that A flat there, play a D instead or something."
Yeah, that's very.
There are other chords, or don't jump to the verse there. Stick a middle eight in there. Got to build in.
So they can help with the arrangements and the performance and the whole thing. But for independent musicians, you, me, our friends out in the field, really quite often it means that you are self-produced.
Yes.
Our chum, Dr. Robert, he's self-produced now. Yeah. Probably always has had a big hand in his own productions, but particularly now. My mum produces herself, basically. She tells us what to do, doesn't she? Because
she really is. Yeah, she does work that way. Yeah.
My mum, Mary Hopkin, met my father, Tony Visconti, because he produced her. She chose him as a producer. But now she, with other producers who didn't really, Paul McCartney was one, Mickey Most, they stopped listening to her. They didn't give her a chance to contribute as an artist. So she's very much working on her own terms, which means that she's the producer. And similarly for my songs, for my albums, I decide how I want them to be. Yep. I have got you, though, to bounce things off. So we kind of co-produce, don't we?
I wouldn't say that I produce your stuff at all. I don't think that's the case. I might engineer and I might have mixed decisions that I might make. But
changed the record you did a lot.
That was a different album, but yes. Yeah. But the point being is that at least I am a separate pair of ears.
Yes.
And they're quite a big set of ears as well. But
beautiful.
But not everybody does that. Not everybody works that way. The way that production works these days, people can just go in and start in a silo with a loop and then do some other things and then mix it, master it, put it out without anybody else hearing it. Yeah. And it could also end up being on Bandcamp or something and nobody will hear it there either.
Yeah.
It is the possibility. But that I am, with your material, we often, and certainly with your mum's stuff, we get it mastered as well. So there's at least 4 sets of ears that have had the song played to.
Yes.
And, so there's always that little bit of safety net involved in there.
Yeah. So for independent musicians, I mean, it's a budgetary thing as well, that we can't afford a producer necessarily or another person involved in our work chain, I guess. So we have to do it. But
or a studio, or going into a studio can be expensive.
Exactly. Well, it was. We know we ran one.
Oh yes. Yeah.
So how does it work then? How did a production happen, and how does it happen now? In the old days, you had a very formal approach, didn't you? There was a special place you went to with special dedicated people.
I mean, it depends how far you want to go back with that, but yeah, I mean, it was a very particular gate-kept reserve.
So you had to impress somebody first before they deemed you worth spending money on.
Yes.
The label had to spend money on you.
Well, studio time was expensive, wasn't it? I mean, you did have all of those technicians. You were saying about the white, I mean, if we were talking about Abbey Road here, but the guys were in white coats, they were the recording engineers, but there were also the guys in the brown coats who would go and move all the microphones around. The engineers wouldn't necessarily touch those. It'd be someone else would be doing that. So there'd be this big team of people that had to be paid for. Tape was blooming expensive.
Yeah.
You know, so it was a very exclusive thing, so that you did have to have money behind you.
Yeah.
I guess as time went by, the backstreet studio started, didn't it? But even then, you still had to scrape together a little bit of money.
Yeah.
But that wasn't having a producer necessarily with you. That was someone in the band doing the production, or even, God help us, the engineer of the studio that you went to.
Well, in the middle of the night, you go in dead time, or you'd sneak your way in, or say you can have from 2 till 4 a.m. When nobody else wanted it. And that's how a lot of bands got started, and a lot of producers too. And
in those big studios, in that cases, that was how the producers were. That was, you know, you'd have an engineer who would be cutting their teeth. And then, you know, being encouraged to get bands in during the evening to get their practice in.
My dad, for instance, cut his teeth with Denny Cordell, who was the record producer, and he started by arranging for him, and then just worked his way up from there. So many are learning on the job, but now, of course, they teach this stuff in colleges, don't they? That's another show altogether. But now, arguably, anybody can do it. Whether you have the inclination or the patience is a different matter.
Yeah.
But the gear you can get. Do you remember when we started Space Studios in Cardiff, which we had for a good few years? We had the room. The rooms were arguably the more important thing. We had good.
I think that's still the case, but yeah.
Yeah, we had good basic digital equipment, and we did quite a lot of work on that.
Yeah.
Then we invested in the Pro Tools rig, which was fairly expensive, and it did the job for a while. But now the firepower of something on a Mac Mini is a lot.
It's ridiculous.
It's this big compared to this big, and it's probably 4 times more powerful.
And an eighth of the cost.
Oh, it's quite depressing. But then you've got people who are sticking to the old ways. You know, they're like, oh, but I like the valve gear, and I like tape, and you know, it sounds different, and they eulogize and romanticize all the old.
And that's great. That's absolutely fine. If that's a workflow that works for you and you can afford it, then fine. But all of the analog gear is prone to breaking.
Yeah.
You need 3 versions of it. You need one to work, one that's being repaired, and one to replace the one that works when it goes down.
Yeah.
You need someone to come in and set up the tape machine for you, unless you know how to bias it and what's the other word that they use?
Balance.
There's another word as well, but I'll get back to you on that one. But you need to get someone to come in and look after these things. Unless you're an actual electrical engineer, you know, you're kind of stuffed on that one.
Yeah.
So if it works, it works. Same as if working with an 8-track. There's nothing wrong with that, but you've got to be blooming good at getting your takes down. Yeah,
before the tape wears out, frankly. I mean, my mum and I started on the 8-track with my brother back at home. We had the Porter studio, and why has that camera just gone off? What are we talking about?
Well, that just goes to prove my point. You went to go and check on the camera there, and that's a digital camera, and it's just stopped working. Yeah,
it just went off because the car's full. These things have, well, that's the thing. Using a real studio is you've got somebody else to deal with all those problems.
There's someone else who worries about it, yes.
If you are on your own and you're like, oh, I love this song, it means a lot to me, and I've just put this down and I hope it goes somewhere, and then all of a sudden your hard drive goes down, or the power fails, or something happens, or you trip over your headphones and smash a microphone or something like that.
You still got your guitar in bypass.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, you've done the take of the century, and you've got one eye on the levels and another eye on your music, and, another eye here. It's ridiculous.
That's not a reason to not do this stuff yourself, of course.
No, but it is hard. I'm very lucky to have you to help me.
You are, yes, yeah.
We help each other, but doing it on your own, people do it, absolutely. Yeah. But I
mean, to use exactly what we're doing here as well, though, we don't have an engineer who is looking at the sound while this is happening.
No.
And that's around the corner, and I can't see the screen. I don't know what's going on with it.
No, exactly. We could be rabbiting on and not recording.
We've done the live streams. This is veering a little bit away from the production, but we've done live streams, and we're completely out of control of what's going on. And you've got all of these different hats that you have to wear. Yeah. There's the most important hat in that case is when you're playing the song.
Yep.
But you've also got to think, well, what are the levels like that are going to the stream? Are they loud enough? So you've got to be a sound. You've got to not touch the microphone. I've been doing this game for nearly 20 years and I still don't know to not touch a microphone. But you've got to be a sound engineer. Then you've got to look at what's happening with the live stream and the internet. There's not a lot you can do about that. But it all detracts from the principal thing that you're supposed to be doing, which is putting the song down.
Just performing.
And it's exactly the same thing with the production. You're there, you should be doing the best performance that you can. And it can be very difficult to do that when you've got all of the other things that are going on, when you're worrying about your buffering on the your buffer size on a door, or are you keeping your levels within the correct tolerances, or all of these things. Well, all you should be doing is just, I'm nailing this part.
Yep.
Oh bugger, I've got it in a small loop instead of the right bit that it should be.
It really interrupts your flow. I mean, things happen in a big studio session as well.
Sure,
something goes wrong. But you have more people to help, and you've always got somebody to go and put the kettle on.
Yes.
Which is the most important piece of studio equipment, I think.
Without a doubt.
Kettle and chocolate hobnobs, I believe.
I don't know, I'm off the hobnobs these days.
I quite fancy a hobnob now. But how do you learn it? I mean, where do you start? I would say the first place would be to use your ears, because you can listen, you can decide. You start with your favorite track and you go, what really makes it magic? Is it the sound of the drums? Is it the sound of the vocals? Is it how the guitar goes? And you start to identify what makes that track special, as opposed to this special track, which will have a different feel. And then you start to look up, what did they do? And, things like Sound on Sound are brilliant because they've got the classic tracks. And you watch a lot of videos, don't you?
Yeah.
What favourite videos you watch?
I'm not talking about those on here. Do I want to name anybody? There are a few YouTube people that I think are very good, but I'm not going to give anybody any. No.
I mean, you can just Google it and watch YouTube, and there's, again, 100,000 different people telling you different ways to do things, but you've just got to follow a path, though. I mean, you could start with, who produced my favourite track? Are they still around? Have they made any videos? Have they done any interviews? And you start there and you just follow your path, basically. You decide what you want to achieve. Do you want to achieve a very modern, chart-friendly top 20 sound, in which case listen to that stuff? Or do you want to produce something that's really cool, like old Led Zeppelin, in which case go and listen to Led Zeppelin, go and listen to other stuff that the producer produced, and ask those kinds of questions. But listen to everything. Listen to the hi-hat. Listen to, the organ sound that you can barely hear in the background, and, all sorts of things. And I think that's sort of the Visconti studio at Kingston University. They named it obviously after my dad because, it was always there, but it had this great endorsement from him because it was a totally analog studio. It's got a Pro Tools system at the heart of it, but it's about the room and all the instruments in it. It's got pianos and mellotrons and all sorts of analog gear. And it teaches the students where the modern stuff was derived from.
Yes.
If you've got a preset, what you call them, plugins, if you've got a plugin that goes tape echo, then they'll show you what a tape echo really is. And you'll know where it comes from, because all the modern stuff is derived from the old stuff. We still use the same terms, don't we?
Yes.
Loop. What is a loop? We know what a loop is on Apple loops.
Yeah.
But a loop literally was a loop.
A loop of tape.
I've seen my dad make one round a microphone stand. You feed it out of the machine, round a mic stand, and back in. You can just circle it round and round and round for various reasons. So learning. If you really want to learn, then learn well.
Yeah, that's the thing. And don't give your money to any old shyster on that as well. There are very good courses out there if you want to go down that route. But probably the best thing to do is, say, apart from listen to the tracks, just go and get Sound on Sound and maybe tape op and just read those. Yeah. And try the stuff out that they say in there. They put good examples up. Yep. They're non-biased. They're not trying to sell you anything else. Yeah. That's it. Try it out as well. So you can find a method and you can say, okay, what happens, like mic placement, for instance, what happens if I'm really close to the microphone like this, or if I stand back here, you get different effects. That's called the proximity effect. Proximity effect. It happens with cardioid microphones. It's a pretty basic thing, but you'll be amazed how few people pay attention. Like, for instance, have you got your mic? They go, why does my voice sound all tinny?
It's like, well, are you recording in a big live room, or are you recording in your wardrobe where you probably should be if you're recording at home?
Or you could also have a very tinny voice and the microphone isn't actually that good and matched towards you.
You can try,
which is a
ones.
thing. But and obviously if you went into a studio, hopefully they've got a range of microphones that they could shove under your nose and you could find the one that suited you. I mean, some people don't particularly like Neumann microphones. They prefer to have, whatever. Yeah. AKG microphones, AKG 414 can often be better on a female voice than a Neumann, but it's just slightly darker.
So you'll spend the first couple of days just messing around and trying to find your sound, and the producer will learn a bit about you and what you want to achieve. That
always used to make me laugh when we'd have bands come into the studio and they'd say, yeah, we want to record an album. Great, how long do you want? A day. Well, we're going to get a good result there then. I mean, you should be trying sounds out for the first couple of days. Yeah. That's the way that it works. And that's not just us trying to sell our studio time.
No.
It's just if you want to be happy with the end result, you've got to know the song backwards.
Yep.
Be prepared to change it if you've got a producer working with you, and get the very best out of whatever you're using, including not using your equipment, using better equipment.
Because it's a false economy to spend all that time and effort and not get it right.
Yeah.
And it could happen that you leave the studio, you leave it, you're lucky to get 2 weeks in a studio these days. It used to be 6 months.
Yeah.
You get 2 weeks of tracking.
Yeah.
Then you go off and then you can mix somewhere else. Like my dad will record, for instance, in the Visconti studio, which is huge and lovely, and then he'll pack it all up in a hard drive and take it back and mix it in his mix room, which is beautifully set up, but it's small and it's his own. He
knows how it sounds.
Yeah. So the one caveat I would say is that a bad producer maybe, or a not very good producer, will often try and impress upon you what they want. And especially I could see that happening in these new production teams, they have the sound. So they all pick a singer and the track will sound like them. And if you're choosing to work with someone, or if you're lucky enough to have a label and they've put you together with someone, it's got to be the right fit. And my mum went through this with, Mickey Most was, but she eventually said, that guy, Tony Visconti, produced the Dragonfly album by the Strawbs, and that's the sound I want. And that's the sound he brought. And that's what they agreed on. And she felt that he could bring out the best in her as a singer. But quite often you're going to get somebody who will just, I'd imagine, keep referring to Phil Spector. Phil Spector. He had a distinctive sound. I doubt very much that the singers ever got their say, that they were just the smallest chain in the procedure.
I think that I know you've kind of recapped on that, but the point is, it might not be that they're a bad producer. It could just be personality and they're not a good fit.
Yeah.
I remember when Metallica got Bob Rock to work with them, and everybody was up in arms about it because, he'd done Motley Crue and crap like that. And then he was doing Metallica.
Yeah.
And he definitely brought about a change.
Did they like it?
On the Black Album. Well, they kept working with him.
Yeah. Well, and it was a very successful album.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes. Each of them had 18 million reasons to stick with him. Yeah.
Yeah, that'd be all right. Anyway. So most importantly, where's the money at?
I don't know. I haven't got a clue.
Who's getting paid? So obviously this is, if you're working on your own, then it's you, hopefully. You'll release your music, it gets streamed, it gets downloaded, and you'll reap your rewards that way, and then you won't have to pay a producer or anybody else.
Hooray!
The software companies get paid by subscription these days.
Yeah, and by flogging you a whole bunch of stuff. Brand new 1176 compressors that you really don't need.
No. The studio. But the producers, again, if you're working with one, you have to be very clear on who's getting what. Yeah. So they might be paid by the day, or by the project, by the song, or by royalty cuts. If they're asking for cuts, they can either take a percentage of your songwriting share, or if they've performed on it, a bit of the PPL, or both. And that's all up for grabs and up for discussion, I would say. I don't really know the facts. I would say that very established producers could ask for a royalty, actual royalty from the label, but that's if there's a label involved as well.
Probably an upfront fee as well.
Yeah, and an upfront fee. So just be very clear about what you're doing, because it's very easy to have this romanticized idea of, spend 6 months in the studio, but the guys who are serving you, as it were, are getting paid by the day. So it's not an endless time frame or a bottomless purse anymore, I would say. So just be clear about who's getting what and get it in writing. And as we learned the other day at PRS, just be clear about your contract. If there's a contract, the MU and PRS and others do have a legal advisory service that you can use to check over any contract, which is well worth doing.
And it's all free, and
it's free.
You get pro bono work with them, and
to a limit, but it's certainly worth. They can check it through and go, this is right, and it's in their interest, because they keep an eye out to say, this company's offering really dodgy contracts. So, that's probably another discussion on its own.
Yes,
So let's quickly go over some of the mental health issues, because there are so many in the music industry. So we said be clear about who owns the project, which is the same as if you're collaborating with anybody, isn't it? Another artist or a writer. If someone offers to produce you, be very clear about what they're expecting to get out of it.
Yeah.
I've had people offer to produce me. I've turned them down because I'm not really short on producing help in my family. I'm very, very lucky. However, it did make me wonder why on earth they would want to produce me. So are they after the royalties they think we all might get? Or, are they offering to, imprint their sound on me? I don't know. I don't know why. But be clear. It's not that people go around wanting to make you famous for your sake.
Their desired outcomes are going to be very different to yours.
Yeah. And just be very, very clear. The music business is a nefarious, horrible, horrible business where people take advantage of each other. I can't stress that enough. Assume they're going to, and then be pleasantly...
It's got its downsides as well.
Yeah, be very pleasantly surprised when it doesn't, when there are genuine people. There are plenty of genuine people, but assume they're not going to be to start with. Ask all the questions. Chris, if you're self-producing like we've done, what would you say are the important things to bear in mind from a personal perspective?
I think developing a very thick skin is probably, that's the biggest thing that we can all do as musicians. You've got to have a thick skin.
Yep.
Because if you're doing all of the roles in this particular, in production, it all comes down to you. That's a positive and a negative, but the fact of it is, at any point you can screw up. And it might be a happy accident and it'll be perfect and it'll be the greatest thing that's ever happened. But you can get it wrong in so many different places.
Yeah.
And that in itself isn't a reason to not do it. You absolutely should do it and try it yourself. But you've got to be aware of that fact that it puts an enormous amount of pressure on you, as I was saying earlier on. Actually, what you as the artist should be doing is putting down the best song that you can write.
Yeah.
That's the critical point. Coming up with, I've just hit the microphone again. Coming up with the very best song that should be your absolute raison d'etre as an artist.
Yeah.
The rest of it is kind of by the by. If you have to produce yourself, then develop a thick skin on that one.
Yeah.
Also, set yourself realistic, but also definite timelines and deadlines.
Yes.
Because otherwise you can just sit on one song for 25 years.
I've heard this. Yes, I've heard this happen.
We've seen it, a band that is apparently going places and, wants to get someone like Chris Lord-Alge to come in and mix it. I've only got 5 songs written and 3 of them aren't very good.
Yep.
And there's nothing new in the pipeline.
And they're not clear on their outcomes or their splits or their anything. Yeah.
So,
we know whereof we speak.
Set yourself realistic goals with that.
Yeah. Accountability. Yeah. So
that's the thing. You when you're doing it all yourself as well, you're only accountable to one person.
Yeah. Which is the decision you make. Either you want to be a commercial independent musician and get it out there and start making the money, or you're just doing it for the pleasure. You should do it for the pleasure anyway.
You should always do it for the pleasure. Yeah.
Some people are just happy making music and they don't mind what happens. But if you have any aspirations to make some money or to be heard by a wider audience, then you've got to be realistic about what you're doing.
And being realistic doesn't mean asking your family.
No.
you know, because with all due respect, your mum might be your biggest fan,
Yeah.
but hello, mum. But,
Hi, Mum.
you know, whether they're actually a good final arbiter in whether your music is good or actually a beautifully polished turd is, you know,
which is where the touring
probably
comes
not,
in.
you know, and that's the thing, yeah.
Posting your music around, get it registered and then post it around and see if anyone likes it. So, yeah, be realistic and be prepared for the fall.
But one of also earlier we said about having a different set of ears listening to music, and I kind of touched it there, talking about your mum. It's very hard to be objective when you are silo working, you know, so you got your little loop going and then you put another loop on top of it and you're doing this, that and the other and you're coming up with your song and you might think it's the best thing ever. There's a very real possibility that you'll go away and listen to it again tomorrow morning and think, oh dear, who wrote that? I'm going to sell all of this gear. You know, when you've got, and even if it's an engineer who's working with you, they can say, you know, that you didn't play that bit particularly well, have another go at it. You know, if you've got a producer, they're probably going to come down a little bit harder on you. If it goes if you send your work out to an independent mixer, they may well mute a lot of the stuff that you've done, because obviously when you're producing your own track, you are going to put down 9 million options on a guitar part that, and the mixer will probably mute most of them straight out and just, you know, get down to the integral part. What's the important point of this song? Yeah. And then at the end of it, you can have a mastering engineer, which is, again, just that step of, it's a sense of reality. It's someone else who's saying, whoa, that's too cluttered. Because of these million tracks that you've put in the middle 8, there's a massive build up at 4K. So we need to take that out. It's a safety net for you. Yeah. Yeah. So it's so hard to be objective if you're doing it all yourself. Yeah, definitely. Just the mere playing it to, like, when I had songs I hadn't even recorded and I play them to you, I was so nervous. And it's as soon as you play them to somebody else, or if you hit play and there's whoever in the room, you hear it differently because you're being observed. And you feel the need to explain bits, don't you? And, it's just like, and if you feel the need to explain a bit, it means it's not very good and it needs to come out. That's the thing with my mum, though. She's making new music all on her own, bless her. She's there recording her own vocals and her own arrangements and everything. And when we go and have a listen, she feels the need to explain it all. And I say, please don't explain it, just hit the play button. And then she plays it and it's brilliant, you know, but she's thought she had to justify something, or, yeah, it's difficult. It's really difficult. It's your heart and soul. That weird thing of talking over your music. Yeah. Because you feel the need to cover something on it. Yeah. Well, the worst thing is when you play it to somebody and they're going, yeah, so what are you doing next, mate? When are you going on tour? Rah, rah, rah. Listen to that bloody song. Anyway, well, let's sum up then. What does this mean for the independent musician in the 21st century? You can set up your own studio for a very small outlay. For practically, well, not nothing, but for, practically nothing. Yes, and then you will be in control. Yeah. However, it won't help you write a great song. No. It won't tell you when it's crap. No. It won't tell you when to stop. The rabbit hole. And you will fall down the rabbit hole. However, if you are lucky enough to work with a producer, then listen and learn. And there's a little story as an aside. When Mick Ronson worked with my dad on the Man Who Sold the World album, he paid so much attention to what Tony was doing, and Tony helped him to arrange things and write strings and things like that. And you can hear it when my dad left the organisation, as it were. The next album, you can hear these string arrangements that are all Mick Ronson, but very much a TV thing going on. So there's a legacy there. So listen and learn. You never know what you're going to pick up. Everybody's different ways of working that you can then bring into the next batch of demos that you make. Or even your own productions. That sounds like we're saying get a producer, but we're not saying that. You don't have to have a producer. Just have very, very clear goals. If you're self-producing, have very clear goals, very realistic and objective goals. Play your music. Go out and play open mic nights or something before you put something down. That's your pre-production. That's your own pre-production then. You've got to do it, because... How do you make a hit record? Start with a great song. That's it. Write the very best song that you can write. Write the best song you can write. Be clear about your voice, as in your sound, your own sound, and don't let anyone bully you into what they think. Certainly not two idiots who've got a camera and a couple of microphones.
No, be true to yourself. So on that note, obviously we'd love to continue the conversation. So do get in touch with all the methods that will be in the comment section below, the information and arranged around the screen somewhere, wherever
We're going to have to do that now, aren't we?
Wherever we put them. And thank you very, very much for watching. And do follow us for more amazingly produced content. So we'd like to thank you very much for watching, and do follow, share, like, etc. us for more content when it comes. Thank you very much.